When you hear the name Mr. Dog Food, the first thing that might come to your mind could be a dog lover or someone who owns a dog food company, right? No, you might be completely mistaken if you have such an innocent thought. This is the story of Rollo Stills, also known as Mr. Dog Food, and how he became the biggest drug dealer in Atlanta. Born on February 12, 1995 in Atlanta, Georgia, Rollo started life under the name Terrell Davis. It was only later as an adult that he became commonly known by his stage name Rollo Stills, which he chose for his rap career. Rollo didn't have an easy start in life as he was born in what was considered the most dangerous area of Atlanta's suburbs and the fifth most dangerous in the entire United States. This area, often referred to as the Bluff, is located around the English Avenue and Vine City neighborhoods. Many magazines have described this area as an open-air drug market with snow on the ground, being a nickname for heroin. One journalist even recalled being chased by dealers while driving through the area. But drugs weren't the only problem. The Bluff was infamous for its high crime rate, where violence was a regular part of daily life. The area was so bad that an average house would only cost about $10,000. Imagine growing up in such a place. It's not exactly a breeding ground for opportunities to improve one's life, and Rollo was no exception. With the foundation laid by his father, a major drug dealer, Rollo was almost destined to follow in his father's footsteps from an early age. As a child, he was in and out of juvenile detention for various reasons, including drug dealing, armed robbery, and even kidnapping. Before reaching adulthood, Rollo claimed to have been jailed 32 times. In many high-crime areas, a few gangs run the Bluff, but the gang Rollo was loyal to was Fam America. His gang would later be recognized as Atlanta's most dangerous street gang for 2 consecutive years. By the time Rollo reached his teenage years, he was already out on the streets selling drugs, specifically crack, earning him the nickname Dog Food. Crack is the street term used by gangs as a code word for drugs. However, Rollo had bigger dreams for his life. He wanted to make a lot of money and quickly build a reputation on the streets by dealing as much as possible. By the time he reached his 20s, Rollo claimed to have made over $12 million from drug dealing, but this wasn't necessarily good news for the young man. Publicly boasting about it to the world was bound to get him into trouble. In 2012, Rollo started using social media to post his highlights. These posts often featured photos of the young man posing in front of the camera with massive stacks of cash, all of which were earned from selling crack. However, after a short stint in jail, Rollo decided he wanted to take his rap career seriously. He had started rapping at the age of 11, but since his main job was dealing drugs, it wasn't until one of his last stints in jail that he decided to focus on his music career. Rollo began working with his childhood friend and fellow rapper, Young Scooter. On November 3, 2014, they released their first song, Stay Focus, and later on January 26, 2015, they released their second song, F.A. Show. However, breaking into the rap scene at that time was challenging. Rollo knew he had to spend some money if he wanted to become a big name in the rap game. So he decided to use some of his drug money to approach rapper Future and ask him to feature on his new song. At first, Rollo didn't know how to approach Future, since the rapper was known for not wanting to talk to people he didn't respect. However, in a strange twist, Rollo managed to befriend him thanks to his jewelry. It's well known that Future has a fondness for anything related to jewelry, as long as it's expensive. With a chain worth over $30,000, Rollo caught Future's attention. After paying $25,000, Future featured in Rollo's new song, titled Can't Lie, released on May 4th, 2015, which quickly became a hit. Today, Can't Lie has garnered over 7 million views on YouTube. This song helped Rollo stand out in the rap scene, and he was eager to continue with more tracks and even an album. However, as his fame grew, Rollo began facing issues related to his connections with his gang. Soon after, news outlets reported that he was part of a dangerous criminal organization. Rollo tried to change the public's perception of Fam America, claiming that it wasn't a gang and that he had rebranded it to establish a foundation and community center in his area. However, this claim was quickly proven false. Over time, Rollo's identity as a drug dealer and gang member wasn't helped by his frequent posts of photos and videos showing him with hundreds of thousands of dollars. This wasn't the kind of money he earned from his early rap career, and these photos would come back to haunt him in the future. By 2016, Rollo's rap career was on the rise with numerous social media posts flaunting his massive wealth. At first glance, it seemed like this Atlanta rapper had succeeded in escaping his difficult childhood and building a better life for himself. However, it wasn't long before Rollo began boasting in interviews about how he had made over $12 million from dealing drugs before becoming a rapper. He even claimed that he made more money from selling drugs than from rapping. Despite this, Rollo continued to release new songs in 2016, many of which featured well-known and beloved rappers in the industry. By this time, Rollo started bragging on social media about owning around 5 houses and 26 apartment buildings in his neighborhood in the Bluff. These apartment buildings were in fact where Fam America conducted all its gang activities. Not suspicious at all, right? Clearly, no matter how successful Rollo became, he didn't want to completely sever ties with his past. By 2017, things were really going well for Rollo. On February 12th, 2017, he announced that he had become a newly signed partner with Gucci Mane, a rap legend in Atlanta. This was a big step forward for Rollo as it meant he was on the verge of success in his rap career. On April 25th, 2017, Rollo released a song called Rollo Escobar, seemingly implying that he was still a drug kingpin in Atlanta. In an interview, he also revealed that the apartment complex where his gang lived was called Pakistan, and he claimed they weren't dealing drugs from there. Instead, he said he provided everything the gang needed with his own money. If that were true, I don't think the police would be so interested in him. Rollo was clearly aware he was under the authorities' watch when he stated on social media that agents were constantly surveilling him. This didn't stop him from posting photos and videos of himself with lots of money, and he even publicly taunted the police, claiming they couldn't do anything to him. By the end of 2017, Rollo was no longer pretending that the money he flaunted came from rapping. Instead, he posted a short video on social media where he held a large bag of cash and declared that he had made all that money in just 20 minutes on the streets. To make matters worse, he bragged about his crew carrying machine guns. This probably wasn't a smart move, but Rollo rarely took the time to think about what he was saying on camera. He seemed unable to resist provoking law enforcement or boasting about the money he made from selling drugs. On October 9, 2017, Rollo was driving his Lamborghini around the city when he was pulled over by the police. During the stop, Rollo live-streamed on Instagram and recorded a video mocking the police, saying they didn't make money and suggesting they should work for him by selling drugs on the streets. Without facing any consequences from the traffic stop video, Rollo ended 2017 by releasing one of the biggest songs of his career, Lil Kali and Pakistan. This song, named after his gang's territory, has garnered over 23 million views on YouTube. However, things were about to take a serious turn. With all the money Rollo was making and the indirect hints in his songs that he was still dealing drugs, Rollo had attracted a lot of attention from law enforcement. However, Rollo seemed completely unaware of this. On December 18, 2017, Rollo and dozens of his crew members boarded a private jet from Fulton County Airport to Sacramento, California. Authorities recorded the entire process with a team consisting of ATF, FBI, and Georgia State Police members tracking the private jet as it traveled to the new state. Then, on December 22nd, just a few days later, agents witnessed Rollo and his crew unloading 37 suspicious packages from the jet onto a truck. To make things even more suspicious, the gang ordered the crew not to touch any of the packages. Not wanting to reveal their presence too early, the agents allowed the gang to leave the airport. They then followed the truck from a distance before pulling it over for not having its headlights on. Clearly, the gang's efforts to be discreet were not enough to evade police surveillance. After checking the truck's information, police discovered that it was registered to Rollo's address. When they searched the truck, they found the 37 packages they had seen being unloaded from the plane. Inside the packages were 520 kilograms of heroin, valued at about $1 million. Unfortunately, Rollo wasn't in the truck, but a bag belonging to him was found in the vehicle. His crew members who were present were all arrested. Instead of staying silent after the arrests, Rollo continued to boast openly on social media, essentially incriminating himself. In one post, he claimed he had just lost $1 million in the blink of an eye, a sum matching the value of the drugs the police had just seized. Although the police hadn't arrested Rollo yet, it was clear they were just waiting for the right moment and gathering all the necessary evidence. In the months following the truck seizure, Rollo continued posting on social media, flaunting his immense wealth while taunting the police and claiming they couldn't touch him. Meanwhile, it seemed like the police were intensifying their investigation. In February 2018, Rollo posted a live video on Instagram as he retrieved his Lamborghini Aventador from the police impound lot after being arrested a few days earlier for a traffic violation. Then, on February 24th, his tour bus was pulled over and searched by the police, suggesting they were busy building a case against him. Despite this, Rollo seemed oblivious to the situation and continued posting videos and photos mocking the police. Everything came to a head in April 2018. On April 14th, 2018, the ATF and FBI received information that Rollo and some of his crew were about to repeat their drug trafficking activities. They had chartered a private jet to fly from Atlanta to Sacramento, California. Upon arriving in California, the police tracked Rollo's cell phone and discovered that he had gone to the infamous Murder Mountain in Humboldt County, a region known for its cannabis cultivation and featured in a Netflix documentary of the same name. It was clear that this was where Rollo and his crew were sourcing their drugs. After completing the trip, Rollo posted a photo on social media of himself with 5 men and 1 woman getting ready to board the private jet. On April 15th, when the jet finally landed back in Atlanta, agents were waiting. As soon as the plane came to a stop, the police sprang into action and arrested the passengers. Seeing the police on the tarmac, Rollo quickly shut the plane's door and refused to come out. After ignoring the police's orders, the officers had to forcibly open the plane's door. Once they did, they sent in a K-9 unit to apprehend Rollo. With all the suspects in custody, the police were granted permission to search the plane. During the search, they found 17 suspicious packages. All these packages contained at least 25 kilograms of heroin, totaling approximately 444 kilograms and valued at around $840,000. Just a few days after the arrest on April 17th, a full indictment was brought against Rollo. The police also received permission to search the apartment buildings that Rollo owned, where the Fam America gang operated. Naturally, they found plenty of evidence, including a gun belonging to Rollo. However, being caught red-handed didn't stop Rollo from continuing his activities. While awaiting trial, he continued to release new music and appeared to still be running his drug empire. According to the police, this situation became even more serious as his music contained anti-police content, particularly in a song titled 12 Can't Stop, where 12 inches is slang for the police. There were many efforts from both Rollo's lawyers and his fans to secure his release. Several petitions were created, gathering over 50,000 signatures, including those from rap stars like Drake, Lil Baby, and T.I. These petitions were sent to the president, requesting Rollo's release, but they clearly didn't have much impact. On February 19th, 2019, rumors circulated that Rollo was offered a plea deal with a 5-year prison sentence. However, Rollo rejected the offer, insisting that he wouldn't back down. Finally, on January 6, 2020, Rollo was granted bail at $250,000, but he was required to wear an ankle monitor and remain under 24-hour house arrest. While confined to a designated property and forbidden from communicating with the outside world via phone, email, or social media, the police received new information just before the bail agreement was finalized. It turned out that Rollo had continued his drug trafficking activities even while in jail, seemingly using his Apple Watch to do so. Finally, in March 2022, nearly 2 years after his arrest, Rollo went to trial, but the outcome wasn't what he had hoped for. Rollo was sentenced to 8 years in prison, but the time he had already served was credited, along with good behavior allowances, so Rollo would only have to serve a total of 5 years from the date of his arrest. After completing his sentence, Rollo was released in November 2023. According to him, within 2 months of his release, he spent over $2 million on new cars for friends and family, as their vehicles had been confiscated during the arrest. It's unclear whether Rollo has learned any lessons from his time in prison, but it's likely that he will continue to release music. However, whether he will continue his drug trade on the streets remains to be seen. Hopefully, he will focus more on music and less on drugs, but given his history, that's hard to say. If there are any new developments, I'll keep you updated. On the bustling streets of Helsinki, a sinister darkness lurks behind the mask of a respected guardian. Jari Aarnio, once hailed as a symbol of law and order, harbors a terrifying secret. Behind the badge of a renowned police chief lies a web of deceit and corruption, a tale of betrayal that shook the very foundation of Finnish society. From orchestrating drug trafficking operations to exploiting his power for personal gain, Aarnio's descent into darkness was swift and shocking. But amid the chaos and scandals, one question remains haunting. How did a man sworn to protect and serve become a crime lord ruling the streets of suburban Helsinki in everyday life? Jari Aarnio's story begins on September 5th, 1957. He grew up in an environment that witnessed both the ordinary and the lurking shadows of the underworld. In 1977, young Aarnio stepped into the world of law enforcement by joining the Helsinki police force. This marked the beginning of a journey that would later elevate him to the highest ranks, navigating the complexities of crime and justice in Finland's capital city. Over time, his dedication and talent became apparent, and his relentless pursuit of justice earned him recognition within the force. In 1986, he led a major case against Mika Kalo, a notorious drug lord who had cast a shadow over Helsinki's streets. Jari Aarnio's role in prosecuting Mika showcased his skill and determination, laying the foundation for a distinguished career in law enforcement. Aarnio's efforts did not go unnoticed, and in 1987 he was honored with the title of Policeman of the Year, a testament to his commitment to upholding the law and protecting the community. These early achievements paved the way for Aarnio's rapid rise within the Helsinki police force. His reputation as an exceptional investigator and dedicated public servant continued to grow, solidifying his position as a trusted figure in the city's law enforcement community. However, as the years passed and Aarnio's career soared, the shadows that had once silently surrounded him began to creep into his path of glory. The same determination and ambition that had propelled him to the top now entangled him in a web of corruption and deceit. As time went on, Aarnio's illustrious career took a dark turn, shrouded by serious allegations of corruption and abuse of power. The events sent shockwaves through the entire law enforcement agency, shaking the very foundation of the legal system. During the years 2011 and 2012 in Helsinki, whispers began to circulate through the corridors of the police department. Jari Aarnio, once revered as a symbol of justice, was now accused of exploiting his position for illicit purposes. It was believed that he had used his power to assist a criminal gang in smuggling and distributing a massive 800 kilograms of cannabis into Finland. Initially dismissed as mere rumors, but these accusations were gradually substantiated. In a blatant abuse of power, Aarnio employed intimidation tactics, threatening a suspect and tempting to frame an innocent person for drug trafficking. Although the name of this individual remains undisclosed, it is believed that Aarnio specifically named him as the head of a drug ring, even though he had no involvement whatsoever. Jari Aarnio's actions, driven by greed and deceit, tainted the honor of the very institution he once swore to protect. He even went so far as to deceive his fellow police officers before his misconduct was exposed. Aarnio fabricated information and provided it to the police department to cover up his wrongdoings, and was also found to have tampered with evidence. despite his efforts to conceal his crimes, but Arnio's web of deceit was ultimately unveiled. His attempts to mislead colleagues and hide evidence were exposed, revealing the extent of his betrayal. The once respected police chief now found himself entangled in the very consequences he had created. Justice finally caught up with Jari Arnio in 2016 when he was convicted of corruption charges related to a security company named Trevor. The court found him guilty of serious offenses, including accepting bribes in the form of a van and 2 tablets provided by the company. Arnio was also convicted of violating public registration laws by concealing his relationship with this company. It was reported that he held financial stakes in the company and used his influence to manipulate decisions within the Helsinki Police Department and other areas. So what was the punishment for all these crimes? December 2016 marked a decisive turning point in Jari Arnio's downfall. In a Helsinki courtroom, the once celebrated police chief now stood before a judge, facing a litany of charges that laid bare his betrayal. On that fateful day, a 10-year prison sentence was handed down, a harsh price for his misconduct. However, Arnio was not the only one involved in this dangerous game. Subsequent investigations revealed that Arnio's right-hand man had also participated in tampering with evidence to protect him. This individual was later dismissed from the police department, but his identity has not yet been made public. The misconduct did not stop there. Further investigations revealed that he had abused his position to issue illegal surveillance permits to the district court and provided false information in an extremely sensitive case. These actions had severe consequences and raised serious questions about the transparency of the legal system. The impact of Jari Arnio's betrayal did not stop in the courtroom. The public's loss of trust in law enforcement severely damaged the integrity of the Helsinki Police Department and legal authorities nationwide. The involvement of a high-ranking officer in corruption sent shockwaves through Finnish society, shaking the foundation of trust that the public had built over time. However, perhaps the most striking aspect was the severity of the sentence handed down to Jari Arnio. The 10-year prison sentence was not only harsh, but also a clear reminder of the consequences of abusing power and betraying public trust. Despite the mounting evidence, Arnio remained resolute in his fight against all accusations, refusing to plead guilty. As the charges continued to pile up and the weight of his crimes bore down, Jari Arnio remained steadfast in his defense, adamantly proclaiming his innocence with unyielding determination. He claimed that his actions were part of a legitimate covert campaign to combat the criminal elements he was accused of being involved with. He cited reasons of secrecy and security to justify his use of multiple SIM cards and frequent phone number changes. As the legal battle continued, the cracks in Arnio's story became increasingly evident. No matter how vehemently he claimed innocence, the weight of the evidence against him grew more apparent, raising doubts about the authenticity of his defenses and his true role in the criminal activities. As Jari Arnio's case came to a close, the wheels of justice continued to turn, opening a new chapter filled with ongoing legal struggles and appeals that would further shape his fate. In 2017, Arnio attempted to overturn his conviction, clinging to a sliver of hope amidst the ruins of his once glorious career. However, his efforts proved unsuccessful as Finland's Supreme Court decisively rejected his appeal, affirming that his sentence was final. In 2018, Arnio was swept into a new storm of crime when a shocking accusation plunged him into even deeper despair. Investigators uncovered a startling piece of evidence. Jari Arnio was suspected of involvement in a murder case. He stood trial, accused of failing to prevent the assassination of Volkan Unsal, which occurred in 2003. Investigators suspected that Arnio had prior knowledge of the assassination plan, but chose not to act to prevent it. Volkan Unsal, a Swedish-Turkish national, was murdered in October 2003. Before that, Unsal had received money from a friend during the Arlanda airport heist in Stockholm and had entered the Witness Protection Program. However, he left the program and was shot dead shortly afterward. prosecutor Jukka Haavisto and investigators confirmed that a government official was suspected of involvement in the murder for failing to prevent the crime. According to reports, the police arrested Aarnio along with a former member of the criminal underworld. Chief Inspector Marcus Lane of the National Bureau of Investigation stated that Jari Aarnio, 58, was arrested in eastern Finland, but Haavisto declined to comment on whether force was used during the arrest. The courtroom became a battlefield as prosecutors worked to convict Jari Aarnio for his role in the case. In December 2020, the verdict was delivered. Life imprisonment, a severe warning about the consequences of failing to act in the face of violence. However, Aarnio's troubles did not end there. Another case emerged, accusing him of transferring 30,000 euros out of reach of his creditors. This debt was related to the illicit profits Aarnio had gained from criminal activities which he owed to the state. 3 others, whose identities have not been disclosed, were also suspected of aiding in this crime. Just when it seemed that Aarnio's fate was sealed, a surprising twist occurred. In February 2022, his sentence was overturned upon appeal, bringing a new glimmer of hope to Jari Aarnio in his fight for freedom. However, the story did not end there. In March 2022, Finland's deputy prosecutor filed an appeal with the Supreme Court, thrusting Jari Aarnio back into the spotlight once again. The legal battle continued intensely, with Aarnio's fate still hanging in the balance. Finally, undeniable evidence came to light. Conversations between Aarnio and a crime boss were exposed, revealing that a Swede would carry out the assassination, and Aarnio's role was simply to ensure that the Swede would not be suspected after the job was done, leaving no evidence behind. In the end, justice was served. Jari Aarnio was sentenced to 13 years in prison for drug trafficking and other crimes. After serving his time, Aarnio was released but remained under strict supervision. This marked a critical turning point in his tumultuous story, opening a new chapter in his struggle for redemption. With freedom within his grasp, he stepped back into the world cautiously ever vigilant against the threats surrounding him. However, as time passed, the shadows of the past refused to fade into oblivion. In June 2022, when Aarnio's probation period ended, it seemed he had closed a chapter of his life. Yet, the echoes of his crimes continued to reverberate, causing significant aftershocks in Finland's law enforcement landscape. Despite Aarnio's efforts to start anew, ongoing investigations lingered over him like an inescapable threat. Law enforcement agencies remained steadfast in their pursuit of the truth, refusing to abandon their quest to fully uncover Aarnio's involvement in drug trafficking activities. Aarnio's downfall sent shockwaves throughout Finnish society, shaking the very foundations of the nation and leaving the country reeling from the severe damage to its reputation concerning corruption. In the aftermath of Aarnio's scandal, urgent measures were implemented to increase oversight of law enforcement agencies, ensuring that no one could wield unchecked power without facing consequences. New regulations were introduced, creating a tight network of oversight that underscored the need for vigilance against the ever-present threats to integrity and trust. Jari Aarnio's story, from a respected law enforcement officer to a serious criminal figure, serves as a testament to the complex interplay of factors that shape human behavior. Whether driven by greed, desperation, or a misguided sense of duty, his descent into corruption is a harsh reminder of the inherent weaknesses within us all. In today's video, we won't be delving into the usual criminals, those who are drawn into the underworld due to poverty or bad choices. Instead, this story revolves around a figure no one would expect, a renowned footballer known for his spectacular plays on the field, who once donned the jerseys of prestigious clubs like Ajax Amsterdam and Sevilla FC. What makes this video unique is that we won't be discussing his football career. This story involves serious allegations, legal battles, smuggling schemes, and extreme violence. This is the story of Quincy Promes, a footballer by day and a drug trafficker by night. Born on January 4th, 1992 in West Amsterdam, Quincy Promes had a challenging childhood. As a child, he played for Ajax's youth academy, but at 16, he was cut from the team. In 2009, he signed with the youth academy of FC Twente, and just 3 years later, on April 12, 2012, he made his debut in the Eredivisie, the top professional football league in the Netherlands. As a forward or attacking midfielder, he shone with his exceptional talent. To gain more experience, Quincy was loaned to Go Ahead Eagles, a club playing in FC Twente's lower division. The season was a success, and under the guidance of coach Erik ten Hag, Quincy had a brilliant season before returning to FC Twente, where he continued to impress. In 2014, he received an enticing offer from Spartak Moscow with a 4-year contract, and was also called up to the Dutch national team. At Spartak Moscow, Quincy had a spectacularly successful period, and in 2017, he celebrated his first major victory as Spartak Moscow won the Russian Premier League. He was also named Footballer of the Year in Russia and ended the 2017 to 2018 season as the top scorer of the Russian Premier League. However, his career wasn't always smooth sailing. In 2018, Quincy signed with Spain's Sevilla FC for a staggering 20 million euros, but his performance didn't meet expectations. Yet, he didn't let this setback dampen his spirits. In the summer of 2019, he returned to the Netherlands and signed with Ajax, the club he had played for in his youth. He quickly regained his form and became a key player, representing the Netherlands at UEFA Euro 2020 and showcasing his talent on the big stage. However, in late February 2021, Quincy suddenly returned to Spartak. Why this abrupt change? On July 24, 2020 in Abcoude, Netherlands, Quincy attended a family party. Besides his football career, he was also a rapper and performed with a live band at the party. After midnight, a heated argument erupted between Quincy and his cousin. Quincy accused his cousin of stealing money from his aunt. Tensions escalated and suddenly Quincy lunged at his cousin with a knife. The cousin tried to back away, but as his heel hit the curb, he fell. As he fell, Quincy rushed forward with the knife in hand. The attack was halted when they were separated and Quincy quickly left the party, but he had no idea that his phone calls were being monitored. The calls that night revealed many shocking details. At 1:02 a.m. on July 25th, in a fit of extreme rage, Quincy called his father, unleashing his frustration about his father's interference in the conflict with his cousin. Quincy shouted, "No, you jumped in between us." Quincy's father responded worriedly, "I didn't want you to get into trouble." Quincy coldly replied, "If it wasn't for you, I would have stabbed him to death. Do you understand?" A few minutes later, his mother called informing him, "Everyone has left. He's being taken to AMC. AMC is a hospital in Amsterdam." Quincy asked coldly, "Where did I stab him?" His mother replied, "In the leg." Quincy casually responded, "Well, he's lucky then. He won't die." About 20 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., Quincy called his mother again, but this time, his younger brother answered. Quincy lowered his voice, "This is just a minor issue," and his brother quietly replied, "This is our right, bro." Quincy continued, "No, I should have stabbed him in the neck. Yes, this is minor. Next time, he'll get a bullet." In numerous other messages and calls, Quincy expressed pride in his actions, viewing himself as a soldier who restored the family's honor. But this was just the beginning of the story. Quincy had been under surveillance from the start for an unexpected reason. Before this incident, he was already suspected of involvement in other crimes. Quincy was being monitored by a special unit called TCI, the Criminal Intelligence Team, a group of police officers focused on organized crime in the Netherlands. You might wonder how a footballer got involved in organized crime, right? Don't worry, I'll explain it shortly. While everything was unfolding, Quincy continued to play for Ajax every weekend, but behind the scenes he was quietly trying to settle matters. In October 2020, Quincy sent two of his friends to meet his cousin with an enticing offer, 20,000 euros in cash. All his cousin had to do was sign a statement committing to withdraw his police report. Phone recordings revealed that this offer was not made politely, if it could be called that at all. An important detail is that at that time, Quincy's cousin hadn't yet filed a complaint. It wasn't until 4 months later, on November 17th, that his cousin officially reported the incident to the police. The media in the country were buzzing with news of this incident, yet Quincy had not been arrested. On December 9th, he played in the Champions League match with Ajax against Atalanta Bergamo. Although the police had planned to arrest Quincy for the incident at the family party, but they ultimately decided not to proceed. On December 10th, just 1 day after the intense Champions League match, the police executed a meticulously planned media strategy. They prepared questions and answers for the media. One of the crucial questions could have been, "Did you consider the Champions League matches?" The pre-written response was, "Yes, we did, but we also had to consider the severity of the incident and the time between the event and the police report." This is noteworthy because it seems to suggest that the police delayed arresting Quincy just because he was a famous footballer. Regardless, on December 12th, Quincy played another match, and finally, just a day later, he was arrested. During interrogation, Quincy admitted that he was at the party and that a heated argument had taken place. He stated that they both went outside and he was pushed away from his cousin before getting into a car and leaving. Quincy claimed he didn't find out that someone had been stabbed until later that night. On December 14th, Quincy was interrogated again. He said that he knew who had carried out the stabbing but didn't want to reveal the person's identity. Interestingly, on the 14th, one of Quincy's brothers-in-law confessed to the stabbing. However, after further questioning, the police asked him to leave as he didn't know any critical details about the incident and couldn't be the suspect. After just 2 nights in custody, Quincy was released, and a long period of silence followed until the end of February 2021. Surprisingly, Quincy moved from Ajax back to Spartak Moscow, the club he had previously played for. Ajax had bought him for 16 million euros and now sold him for 8.5 million euros, a deal that wasn't particularly advantageous. Notably, the contract stipulated that if Quincy was prosecuted, Spartak would not suffer any losses. In an interview, Quincy explained that the turmoil in the Netherlands influenced his decision not to stay. But did he foresee what was coming? Did he know more than we did at that time? Despite the upheaval, the accusations, and the fact that there was a complete case file ready to go to court, Quincy still joined the Dutch national team for the European Championship. The Ministry of Justice shelved his case for over a month, seemingly once again prioritizing his football career over prosecuting him for the charges. On November 18th, 2021, Quincy faced charges of attempted murder. However, after reviewing phone conversations, this charge was reduced to aggravated assault. By May 2023, the prosecutor sentenced him to 1.5 years in prison, as they could only prove it was a serious assault and nothing more. Quincy was not present in court as he was still in Moscow, and this is why Quincy was under the surveillance of the Criminal Intelligence Team. He was being watched not just because of the conflict with his cousin, but also because he was suspected of involvement in drug trafficking and being part of an organized crime syndicate. The Amsterdam police had warned both Ajax and Quincy twice, informing them that he was surrounded by bad influences in the criminal underworld and advising him to stay away, but these warnings seemed to have no effect. You might think that with millions of euros from football, he wouldn't need to get involved in drug trafficking, right? After years of surveillance, prosecutors finally decided to charge Quincy in connection with 2 drug shipments. Intercepted PGP messages revealed that Quincy openly discussed his shipments and was deeply involved in a 650 kilograms shipment and a 712 kilograms shipment. The first shipment, cleverly hidden in bags of salt, was successfully transported, but luck didn't favor the second one. Part of that shipment was seized in Belgium, putting Quincy in a tough spot. Secret messages revealed that Quincy asked his accomplices when they wanted to receive 75,000 euros from his investment. He also discussed details about the location of the first container on the ship and the warehouse, where it needed to be unloaded in January 2020. A particularly incriminating message sent on February 25th, 2020 made the situation even more serious. Quincy wrote, "I'll let you know, my previous shipment only half succeeded. It was shipped in 2 containers, one arrived and one was seized, so my entire profit was halved. It's part of the business." The seized container was filled with bricks of drugs stamped with the image of a tiger. PGP messages referencing the Black Tiger provided additional evidence for the case coded under the name Porto. Quincy wasn't just a coordinator, but was actually the mastermind behind the shipments. His messages included directives like, "My guys are on their way to Antwerp," and "Let's get to work, keep me updated." He received photos of the container's door, its contents, and other details, proving he was running the operation rather than just being an outsider. Further investigation revealed that since 2018, the police had been gathering information indicating that Quincy was fully immersed in drug trafficking. He communicated via PGP phones and was believed to have invested 200,000 euros in a shipment from the notorious smuggler Piet Wortel. The hacked global PGP databases have provided undeniable evidence in the case against Quincy. Currently, Quincy remains in Russia, afraid to return to Europe, especially to the Netherlands. He knows all too well that he is on the brink of being arrested the moment he sets foot outside Russia. Quincy has officially been sentenced to 1.5 years in prison for the assault on his cousin. Regarding the smuggling activities, the next court hearing is scheduled for August 11th, 2023. His lawyer has stated that Quincy is expected to attend the trial, although he denies all charges. Quincy's lawyer, Robert Malowitz, argues that the evidence gathered during the drug investigation should not be used in an unrelated case. The prosecution has requested the court to impose a 2-year prison sentence for the aggravated assault after dropping the previous charge of attempted murder. This is the story of a man who started as a small-time street dealer, but within just a few years, rose to the top of the criminal world. He earned such massive amounts of money that he no longer needed to count it, but had to weigh it instead. Everything seemed limitless, and his organization appeared unbeatable. However, things began to unravel. His life took an unexpected turn after a business dispute that shook the city of Antwerp. No one could have imagined that a simple incident involving a drunk girl accidentally shooting herself in the leg could have such a profound impact on one of Belgium's most powerful criminal organizations. This is the story of Noorden LH. Noorden was born in Nador, Morocco, but grew up in the Dam neighborhood of Antwerp. He started his criminal career as a small-time street dealer, selling only small packages. He was arrested multiple times and received sentences of community service or short-term prison. On one occasion, he was sentenced to 40 months in prison, but he decided to flee to the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, Noorden made remarkable strides. From a small-time dealer, he became part of the top criminal organization in the Netherlands led by Samir Bouyakrican, known as Scarface. This organization imported tons of cocaine and had a direct supply line from South America. Under Samir's guidance, Noorden quickly rose through the ranks, assisting Samir by providing his connections in Antwerp. However, in 2014, Samir was sidelined. His brother, known as Karim Taxi, took over the operation and maintained close contact with Noorden. After each successful shipment, Noorden saved money to fund his own shipments. By 2016, he had become one of the most significant figures in Antwerp, having successfully imported over 750 kilograms of cocaine. In addition to the nicknames Big or Fat Noorden van den Dam, due to his physique and neighborhood, Noorden was also known as NWA, which stood for Never Working Again. His goal was always to achieve this, and it seemed like he was on the right track. One of the main reasons for Noorden's success was his alliance with Frank Noorden, and Frank made a perfect duo, importing many massive cocaine shipments. everything went smoothly until a failed shipment led to a serious dispute. At the beginning of 2017, Frank, nicknamed The Tank, a former bodybuilder, received an advance payment from Norden to pay his team. This time, he received about 400,000 euros from Norden. However, the shipment was canceled, and when Norden requested a refund, Frank claimed that he had to spend part of the money to pay the partners at the port and could not return it. This reason did not satisfy Norden. Frank's staff had incurred significant costs. A port planner in Antwerp could earn between 75,000 and 100,000 euros for sharing the location of a container. A forklift operator could receive 50,000 to 75,000 euros to move the container to a specific location in the port, and even more if he transferred the cargo to a safer container. Altogether, these expenses were a considerable burden for Frank. The conflict between Norden and Frank set the stage for a major crisis that no one could have predicted. The conflict between Norden and Frank escalated to uncontrollable levels. Frank unexpectedly received an unwelcome visitor from Norden, who confronted him with a gun pointed at his head. The message from Norden was clear: return the money. Although Frank refunded 100,000 euros, but it was not the full amount Norden demanded, and this led to Frank's fury. On February 23, 2017, Norden's parents' home was brutally attacked with 18 gunshots as a shocking act of retaliation and a harsh message. 2 suspects were arrested, but no one dared to reveal the mastermind behind the attack. Although they remained silent, but the police were almost able to identify who was behind the assault. Just 3 days later, on February 26th, Norden did not remain silent for long. He ordered 2 henchmen to throw Molotov cocktails and open fire at Frank's house. As expected, the conflict between them could not be resolved peacefully. For safety, Norden retreated to Dubai, over 6,000 kilometers away from Antwerp. However, this move did not mean he stopped seeking revenge. From his distant location, Norden continued to cause trouble and stir up the situation in Antwerp. Norden's satisfaction was short-lived when Frank and his associates were arrested in mid-2017. After the Belgian police began investigating the cocaine smuggling ring at the Antwerp port, Frank made himself an easy target by flaunting his wealth on social media, attracting the police's special attention. However, Norden's satisfaction quickly turned into anger when rumors circulated that Frank had confessed about Norden and his organization during police interrogations. In response, Norden took extreme measures. In February 2018, many houses in Antwerp received a special letter in their mailboxes. The letter, printed in bold with the words, "Death to the Informer," included a list of 9 names, including Frank, his associates, his ex-girlfriend, and even a corrupt policeman who had once been part of Frank's organization. This act caused unprecedented shock in Antwerp's criminal underworld. The flyers frightened the criminal community, especially those named on the list. An anonymous comment read, "Everyone knows who is behind this. I'm not worried, but will stay away from Antwerp. There are enough fanatics who believe this is a real list, while in reality, it's just people who were interrogated." Following the flyer incident, things calmed down temporarily. The police anticipated more retaliatory attacks, but fortunately, no serious incidents occurred. However, in March 2019, the calm was shattered by 4 attacks within less than 2 days. Notably, these attacks began in the same neighborhood where it all started 2 years earlier, the Antwerp Dam area. In one incident, a grenade was used to destroy a car, and the other 3 were arson attacks, including one on Norden's mother's car. These attacks forced the Antwerp police to be vigilant once again, determined to end the violence with a particular focus on capturing Norden. Knowing that Norden was living luxuriously in Dubai and was beyond reach, the police decided to concentrate on dismantling his organization step by step. This was the moment the story turned a completely new page. On April 20th, 2019, a shocking event occurred. Birgit S. accidentally shot herself in the leg. While intoxicated with her boyfriend Mofti R. in their apartment, Birgit was playing with a gun when it unexpectedly discharged and the bullet accidentally hit her leg. Panicking Mufti immediately fled the scene, and Birgit in pain called emergency services. When the police arrived to investigate, they discovered a massive cache of weapons and drugs in the basement: 8 grenades, 6 guns, 1 kilogram of Semtex explosive, nearly 40 kilograms of cocaine, and 25,000 euros in cash. Birgit was promptly arrested for violating gun laws and suspected ties to a criminal organization. The cache of weapons could be linked to the series of attacks plaguing the city. The police continued their investigation and discovered that Mufti was connected to another apartment in Antwerp, where Fieden J., a drug trafficker, resided. This apartment was not only a gathering place for criminals, but also contained additional weapons, explosives, and cocaine. The police secretly installed cameras and microphones in the apartment and parking lot to capture footage of cocaine being transported and explosives being prepared for attacks. This footage provided valuable information to the police. A frequent visitor to the apartment was Mehmet Ali T., Norden's right-hand man. After gathering enough evidence, the police decided to arrest Mehmet. Birgit's accidental shooting and the exposure of a significant part of Norden's organization unexpectedly benefited the police. Another key factor in breaking down the criminal organization was Eric P., a loquacious truck driver. Eric was involved in transporting goods from the Antwerp port and delivering them to Norden's associates. During an investigation, the police intercepted Eric's calls, where he boasted about an upcoming large shipment. On January 13, 2020, Eric received a container from Ecuador and transported it to a warehouse in Bornem. There, Zafir T., Mehmet's brother, and other associates from Norden's organization were preparing to transfer the cocaine into 3 trucks. At that moment, the police swooped in and arrested everyone, once again thanks to the criminals' own carelessness. The police then executed another smart move. Zafir was placed in the same cell as Aziz, another person arrested at the warehouse. Their cell was equipped with listening devices, and the police recorded all conversations for 3 weeks. These conversations provided insights into the entire organization and revealed crucial details about Norden. They overheard Mehmet's wife saying that Norden would send 2,000 euros each month to 10 people. Aziz also spoke about the money Norden promised to keep quiet in a large-scale revenge plan. When confronted with the recordings, both men admitted they knew they were being watched and chose to remain silent. They were locked up together, but the truth of their conversations was merely fabricated stories. Nevertheless, the information from these conversations led to 39 police raids in March 2020 in the Netherlands, Germany, and Belgium. Weapons, ammunition, cash, jewelry, gold bars, and thousands of encrypted phones were seized. 51 people were arrested, and Norden's entire criminal organization was wiped out. Although Norden was living safely in Dubai, but he knew this was a major shock and he was in serious trouble. 3 months after his organization was dismantled, Norden could no longer evade the net. On June 16, 2020, he was arrested in Dubai after topping the most wanted list. Ultimately, he was captured in March, when charges against Norden flooded the media. Meanwhile, Norden had messaged an investigative journalist from the Belgian newspaper GVA, denying any involvement in the allegations and emphasizing, "This is a smear on my honor. I am a legitimate businessman. If they provide any concrete evidence, I will immediately come to Belgium to surrender." Antwerp prosecutor Frankie de Keyser was thrilled when the news of Norden's arrest in Dubai was announced. He believed this would send a strong message to the remaining criminals hiding in the luxurious city, thinking they were safe. Frankie declared, "I hope this will be a big enough shock to make many criminals leave Dubai." In the underground world, rumors quickly spread that Norden might leave Dubai for Colombia at any moment, where authorities sometimes still arrest and extradite criminals. It's possible the police had caught wind of this and decided to act before it was too late, but this has yet to be officially confirmed. However, just a week later, news from Belgium quickly dashed the prosecutor's hopes. Before the police could begin the extradition process to bring Norden back to Belgium, he was released after posting bail of 10,000 euros. Their joy instantly turned to utter frustration as Norden remained free, continuing his luxurious life in Dubai despite the Belgian prosecutors' relentless efforts to bring him back to his homeland. With a 12-year prison sentence and an additional 15 years for another case pending, Norden remains a prime suspect in multiple cases, facing the possibility of a long time behind bars. While being hunted by Australian police, this man once taunted authorities by posting the message, "Catch me if you can," on his Facebook account. He was considered the #1 target for continuously supplying drugs to the country for many years. Australian crime intelligence estimated that he earned a staggering $1.5 billion annually. For over 2 decades, he lived a luxurious life and seemed to feel untouchable. But in the end, he got what he asked for. He was captured. However, that is certainly not the whole story. This is the story of the arrest of Hakan Ayik, Australia's biggest drug kingpin. Hakan's arrest in Istanbul was the result of months of preparation between Australian and Turkish authorities. According to Turkey's Interior Minister, Mr. Ali Yerlikaya, the operation codenamed Operation Cage specifically targeted the Comanchero Gang of Australia, formerly led by the now murdered Mick Howie. The entire operation took place on November 2, 2023, and was meticulously documented. Across Istanbul, well-trained police units raided multiple homes, capturing nearly all targets in one sweep. Most of these individuals truly believed they were untouchable. For a long time, their corrupt connections allowed them to live comfortably in Turkey, but that is no longer the case. Believing they were beyond reach, many of them were shocked when they were arrested. For instance, one of them was calmly having dinner at his table when he was taken into custody. This shows that Operation Cage was very well planned and executed, delivering significant results. A total of over 37 people were arrested with an estimated $250 million in cash, bank accounts, luxury assets like watches, real estate, company shares, and 23 vehicles seized. Furthermore, the Turkish authorities decided to do something quite surprising with these vehicles. Acting Deputy Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police for Crime, Mr. Grant Nichols expressed his satisfaction with the arrests, especially the capture of public enemy number 1, Hakan Ayik. In a press conference, he said, "This proves that one of the biggest mistakes organized crime has made is believing they cannot be caught anywhere in the world. They may think they are untouchable. They may think they can escape justice, but that is entirely false." Now, quickly back to the story of the 23 seized vehicles, most of which belonged to Hakan. What did the Turkish authorities do with these cars? They turned them into police vehicles fully equipped with police logos and flashing lights. Interior Minister Mr. Yerlikaya proudly posted a video showing all these vehicles lined up. The video features many luxury cars like Mercedes, Audi, Ferrari, Bentley, Range Rover, and Porsche, all top-of-the-line models. However, there were also some more modest vehicles like Volvo, Skoda, Nissan, and Peugeot. According to the minister, this wasn't just a promotional video. In his message, he said, "From now on, these vehicles will be used by our police and in the service of our nation, not for criminal organizations. This means that all of these cars will actually be used for patrolling the streets of Istanbul." Can you imagine being pulled over by the police in a Bentley? However, this decision has sparked some controversy, with many people arguing that it would have been better to sell these cars and buy regular police vehicles instead. You can imagine that maintaining a Ferrari or Bentley would be much more expensive than a typical Skoda. Nonetheless, this entire operation was quite the spectacle. So, what made Hakan the big fish and the most wanted man in Australia for over 2 decades? To understand this better, we need to go back to the early 2000s in Australia. Hakan, born in 1979, started getting involved in small-scale drug trafficking when he was in his early 20s. Despite witnessing many of his family members struggle with addiction, Hakan was determined to build an empire, tempted by the enormous profits that could be made. The drug market in Australia is highly lucrative because the country's remote location makes access to drugs more difficult, and prices reflect this. For instance, a gram of cocaine on the streets of the Netherlands or Belgium costs around €50 or 80 Australian dollars. According to the annual report from the Ecstasy and Related Drugs Reporting System, the average price of that same gram in Australia can reach up to €214 or 350 Australian dollars, meaning the price is 4 times higher than in the Netherlands and Belgium. We know that the Netherlands and Belgium have some of the largest ports in the world and are hubs for drug trafficking, but this shows that anyone who can get drugs into Australia can make a substantial amount of money, and Hakan was one of those people. By 2008, he had a thriving smuggling business and was increasingly focused on trafficking synthetic drugs. With the money he earned from the business, Hakan led a luxurious and wealthy life, owning new sports cars, expensive jewelry, or anything else he desired. To appear as a legitimate businessman, he bought several properties and businesses in his hometown of Sydney, as well as in Canberra. While Hakan was building an empire in the drug trade, some of his high school friends had now taken on high-ranking positions in the outlaw motorcycle gang Comancheros. One of these friends was Duax Dax Hohepa Ngakuru, the national president of the Comancheros. Hakan had no intention of joining the Comancheros, but he realized that forming an alliance with the gang could be beneficial for expanding his business. Hakan Ayik was not openly a member of the Comancheros, but he had a significant influence on what went on within the club, despite keeping a low profile. This was noted in a 2008 intelligence report by the Newstos Crime Commission. Hakan was one of the first drug traffickers willing to collaborate with outlaw motorcycle gangs, as they are called in Australia, to distribute his drugs across the country. As his empire expanded, Australian police became increasingly interested in him. However, it wasn't a seized shipment that led the police to investigate further. It was his purchase of a money-counting machine that prompted the New South Wales police to dig deeper into Hakan. In 2008, while Hakan was waiting for a flight at Sydney Airport, he received a notification on his phone. It was an alert from his home surveillance cameras, showing that a small group of police officers was beginning to search his house. Hakan quickly sent a few intimidating friends from the Comancheros to check on the situation, and just like that, the police operation was cut short. On March 5, 2008, a Piper Aztec plane landed at Jandakot Airport in Western Australia. Pilot Jamieson Santos was unaware that dozens of police officers were waiting for the plane's arrival. The officers ordered Santos and his companion Mikalitsi to exit the plane. Detective Moorish noticed a black duffel bag in the cargo hold. When he opened it, he immediately said, "Well, we've got a problem here." The duffel bag was filled with drugs, 22 kilograms of methamphetamine, and 30,000 ecstasy pills worth up to $8 million in total. This was the largest drug bust in Western Australian history and a memorable day for law enforcement officers. After further investigation, the police revealed that Mikalitsi was a drug courier for the Comancheros, and it was highly likely that this shipment belonged to Hakan. The flight from Bankstown to Jandakot took a total of 15 hours. The two men raised suspicion when Mikalitsi refused to leave the plane during a refueling stop, despite airport regulations requiring him to do so. If he had stepped outside, they might have succeeded, and Hakan might have ended the police operation that day when he sent friends from the Comancheros to his home. After that, seized shipment law enforcement became even more determined to investigate him. They decided to launch a new operation called Operation Hoffman. During the thorough investigation, they discovered that Hakan had contacts with members of Chinese triad gangs linked to the Sam Gore crime syndicate, one of the world's largest and wealthiest criminal organizations, formerly led by Tsai Chi-lop. These connections with the triad gangs opened up numerous business opportunities for Hakan. These gangs often owned large factories in China, producing massive quantities of precursor chemicals necessary for manufacturing synthetic drugs. However, Hakan didn't want to rely on a single ally for his supply, so he also sought additional Indian allies. By the end of 2009, selfies of Hakan surfaced showing him standing in a pharmaceutical lab in India. Simultaneously, the police found several documents related to the purchase of large quantities of chemicals needed to produce drugs. This evidence indicated that he was setting up his own industrial-scale synthetic drug lab, eliminating the need for middlemen. Week by week, investigators uncovered more information about Hakan. They also discovered that he had numerous corrupt port and airport staff, as well as a corrupt government official who shared crucial police intelligence with him and a prison officer who relayed messages from Hakan to his incarcerated accomplices. Some of his corrupt contacts were arrested shortly after being discovered by the police. One of them had over 40 kilograms of meth in his house when he was arrested, which truly showed that Hakan had quickly risen in the underworld and was a formidable figure. It can be said that 2009 was the time when Operation Hoffman led to the arrest of the low-hanging fruit, that is, lower-level criminals, which then provided clues to trace the bigger players. Because by 2010, the police began taking down one by one the key figures in the criminal organization led by Hakan. At that time, Hakan was vacationing in Hong Kong when one of his most trusted associates was arrested. This prompted him to decide that returning to Australia was too dangerous, so he fled to Europe and the Middle East. The Facebook criminal couldn't resist the temptation to taunt Australian police on his Facebook page, writing, "Catch me if you can." And so the chase began when an Interpol arrest warrant was issued in July 2010, officially making Hakan Ayik a wanted man. 2 months later, Hakan ran into serious trouble when he attempted to enter Cyprus and was stopped by border control due to suspicions about his passport. However, Hakan managed to escape, reportedly after bribing the border officials, narrowly avoiding the fate he had been trying to evade. At the end of December 2010, Hakan's luck ran out. News spread that Cypriot police had captured him. Police back home in Australia were, of course, thrilled to hear the news, but they were about to receive a big surprise. Instead of extraditing Hakan, Cyprus released him on bail. Immediately, Hakan escaped again, leaving no trace behind. Quite a shock, isn't it? What do you think? Was it right to grant him bail, or had he bribed someone to secure an easy release? Regardless, the Australian authorities decided to seize some of Hakan's assets and businesses in an attempt to pressure him, but this yielded no results. By this time, Hakan had made so much money that a few $1 million more or less didn't matter to him. Moreover, he continued to smuggle large quantities of drugs into Australia, even while on the run. Meanwhile, several official sources reported that Hakan's net worth was nearing $1 billion. This figure was estimated based on several seized shipments owned by him, including a 2014 haul of 1.9 tons of ecstasy and 850 kilograms of methamphetamine, valued at around $1.6 billion. This seizure was later described by Prime Minister Tony Abbott as the second largest drug bust in Australian history. A year later, the police seized another shipment worth over €100 million. After years of silence and surprising everyone, the Facebook criminal reappeared on social media. In a blurry video on the Instagram account of the King Cross Hotel in Istanbul, a man was seen through a reflection. He was dressed in black, filming the hotel's logo, and seemingly unaware that he also captured himself on camera. Upon closer inspection, it was identified as Hakan Ayik. The man who had been on the run for years seemed to be in Turkey, a clue leading to another clue. After conducting a digital investigation, Hakan appeared in a photo from an event in Turkey. Although his face was edited to conceal his identity, but his hairline and body shape gave him away. The name of the hotel also reminded investigators of something, King's Cross in Sydney, long known for its bikie gangs, strip clubs, and crime lords. Turkish business records also revealed that the owner of this hotel was also named Hakan, although his surname was Reis. The word Reis in Turkish translates to leader or commander in English. Could it be that Hakan Ayik changed his name to reflect his power and prestige? The hotel's logo was also a crown. Quite the coincidence, right? If that wasn't enough evidence, official identity records and birth certificates provided further proof. These records showed that Hakan Reisses had previously gone by a different name and had renounced his Australian citizenship in 2019, retaining only his Turkish passport. Hakan likely felt invincible and unbeatable in Turkey for about 10 years, knowing that Australian police couldn't directly apprehend him. However, by 2023, we know the curtain has finally fallen on Hakan. Although it wasn't the Australian police who directly arrested him, but their persistence and cooperation with Turkey undoubtedly played a significant role. It's still unclear whether Hakan will be extradited, and if so, to which country. You might think that Australia would do everything possible to bring him before an Australian court, but that's not entirely certain. Remember, Hakan renounced his Australian citizenship, so Australian authorities are leaning toward having Hakan prosecuted in Turkey as a Turkish citizen rather than pursuing a lengthy and complicated extradition process. It should also be noted that the United States is seeking to extradite Hakan as well. In 2021, he was indicted by the FBI in connection with the Anom encrypted devices and faces a maximum prison sentence of 20 years. In short, this raises the question, is Turkey now at the forefront of cleaning up crime and removing the most notorious criminals hiding within its borders? For example, if we look at Dubai, another place where notorious criminals often reside, they have been taking steps to clean up their streets over the past few years. They have arrested wanted criminals and extradited them out of the city. This is partly due to pressure from other countries, which have seen their primary targets living freely in Dubai, as well as Dubai's desire to shed its image as a safe haven. Similar pressure is now being placed on Turkey. Other nations are unhappy with Turkey's passport program, which makes it easy for criminals to enter the country with a large sum of money. Some might argue that these arrests are just for show, a way for Turkey to say, "Look, we are actively fighting crime within our country." Meanwhile, many criminals still live there. As of now, Turkey has succeeded in removing several criminals from its streets. Only time will tell whether they will continue to do so or gradually let it slide. If you study criminology, it often implies that you are interested in the psychology of criminals, their motives, and their victims. You typically aspire to be on the right side of the law. But what if I told you that there is a man who studied criminology and ultimately ended up on the most wanted list of his country? This man is, interestingly, also a close friend of Bolaños, another criminal who is also on the wanted list. He is a ruthless, intelligent man who never accepts rejection. This is the story of Floor Bressers, Belgium's #1 target. Floor Bressers, also known by the nickname De Lange, born in 1987, began his criminal career in 2009 at the age of 22. This timing is particularly noteworthy because he had just completed his master's degree in criminology. Isn't it ironic? A student who graduated in criminology ends up becoming a real criminal. Did he choose this field of study just to understand how the police think and then use that knowledge against them later? It's possible, but in any case, Floor Bressers is indeed a very intelligent person, and this only makes it more surprising that he chose the path of crime instead of standing on the side of the law. Before 2009, Floor's life was rather obscure. He was just a small-time drug dealer, with nothing remarkable. Most signs indicate that Floor had a stable and decent family background, and a life of crime was not an obvious choice. However, in 2009, Floor, along with 2 accomplices, carried out an armed robbery at a small restaurant in Lommel, Belgium. As soon as they entered, they displayed extreme aggression and fired their guns, forcing the staff to the ground and demanding they stay still. Another employee at the cash register was forced to open the safe and hand over the money to one of the robbers, but the amount stolen was only around 6,000 euros. This was not a very impressive sum, and worse still, Floor's group was quickly apprehended just a few days later. It seemed that Floor's criminology knowledge didn't help much in this case. I had hoped he would target something more valuable and at least manage to evade the police for a longer period, especially since he held a master's degree in criminology. At the trial, Floor expressed his shame about his actions, saying, "Every time I pass by that restaurant, I feel guilty. I will carry this feeling for the rest of my life. Now I'm doing well. I have a job and stay away from any kind of crime." The police also found the gun Floor used in the incident. When asked why he had a gun, Floor explained that it was for self-defense as he had been threatened previously. However, just a year later, it became clear that Floor had not given up the criminal underworld, and what he said in court was just a lie. On August 18, 2010, a Dutchman was walking his dog in Overpelt, Belgium. As he strolled calmly, suddenly, two masked men jumped out of their Volkswagen. They forced the man into the car and drove towards the Bergijk forest in the Netherlands. The story of Floor Bressers is not just a piece of criminological study, but also a testament to the risks and traps of the criminal world. What happened next is truly unbelievable and clearly demonstrates why Floor has another nickname besides Delange. When Floor's group forced the man out of the car, a violent struggle ensued. In the chaos, one of the kidnappers sat on top of the man and pulled out a pair of pruning shears. He tightly grabbed the man's hand, and what happened next could send chills down your spine. This incident is the reason why Floor Bressers is also known by the nickname the Finger Cutter. The man was believed to have implicated Floor in a major drug case, so Floor needed to teach him a lesson. This demonstrates Floor's ruthlessness as he dealt with problems in extremely violent ways. Not long after, this criminology student was arrested due to DNA samples found on the drawstrings and masks they left at the crime scene in the forest. Floor was fortunate to escape legal repercussions, as there was insufficient evidence to prosecute him for orchestrating or carrying out the crimes. He walked out of court a free man, but his name would forever be associated with the criminal underworld. The police later assessed that Floor was an extremely intelligent and dangerous man who preferred to solve matters with violence. They believed that sooner or later, they would have to confront him again, and they were absolutely right. On November 13, 2013, Johannes W., a Dutch truck driver and flour merchant, was arrested in Letchworth, England. During a routine traffic check, Johannes exhibited suspicious behavior. According to police reports, this led them to inspect his truck and cargo. Unfortunately for Johannes, officers discovered that he was not only transporting flowers, but also 40 kilograms of pure drugs, estimated to be worth up to 13 million euros. The shipment was seized, and Johannes was sent to prison. Initially, prosecutors sought a 17-year prison sentence for Johannes. However, after 2 years, the St. Albans Crown Court decided that the evidence showing Johannes's intentional involvement in smuggling was insufficient. He was released and returned to the Netherlands, but his release was not the end of the story. Losing a shipment worth 13 million euros was clearly a serious issue in the criminal world, which meant one thing: consequences. Just a few months after his release on February 12, 2016, Johannes was taken to a house in Balen, Belgium. Later, it was known that this was the residence of Koen van Es, a Belgian kickboxer and criminal. Johannes was horrified when 5 men beat and threatened him with a clear message: he had to return the lost shipment. Johannes offered 40,000 euros that he had kept at home. One of the men took the money from his house, and Johannes was released the following day. They agreed to settle the remaining amount on February 19th. However, by February 19th, Johannes had not yet paid the remaining money. While driving his truck, he noticed an Audi tailing him. The driver of the Audi was none other than Koen van Es. Johannes immediately called the police, and Koen was arrested. After further investigation, the police also arrested 5 other men. At the trial, everything started to come to light. The individuals revealed that they worked for Floor Bressers. It was Floor who had initiated the kidnapping and instructed them to recover the money from Johannes. By 2018, all those involved faced the judge. Floor Bressers, who had not yet been detained for his involvement in this case, was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Before the police could arrest him, Floor had escaped and began living a life on the run. Over time, Floor's name began to appear increasingly in major drug trafficking cases. Fleur no longer limited himself to small-time robberies or drug dealing. He had moved into the big leagues, where every game was more brutal and ruthless than ever. Particularly, his relationship with the daughter of Peter S., a notorious Dutch criminal, opened new doors in the criminal underworld, connecting Fleur with powerful figures. One of the most notable connections was with Jos Leidekkers, also known as Bolle Jos, the most wanted criminal in the Netherlands. Jos was not only famous for serious crimes, but also for being involved in the mysterious disappearance of the cocaine queen, Naima Jilal, and many other horrifying cases. On March 14, 2023, the reward for information about Fleur was increased from €75,000 to €200,000, demonstrating the seriousness of the case. Fleur and Jos were close allies, frequently collaborating to transport massive drug shipments. If you've been following crime news in recent months, you've likely heard about the hack of encrypted PGP messaging servers. After analyzing millions of messages, Fleur Bresser's name appeared among those linked to large-scale drug trafficking. Fleur did not use his real name, but chose the alias Bongo King. According to the messages, Bongo King was the leader of an organization smuggling tons of cocaine to the ports of Antwerp and Rotterdam. Once, 3,200 kilograms of cocaine was seized at the port of Rotterdam, and the messages revealed that this shipment belonged to Fleur. He admitted his extreme disappointment over the seizure and commented, "Well, that was bound to happen sooner or later. Anyway, we had a pretty good run." Fleur's name surfaced again in an investigation into large-scale drug trafficking from Suriname. In 2018, Belgian police received information from an anonymous source that Fleur was involved in a highly profitable drug route. Fleur was transporting cocaine in the containers of a Surinamese rice trader named Nitender Omrazing. In 2018, a shipment of 800 kilograms was brought into the port of Antwerp, hidden among rice bags in a container. The intended buyer was a company in Moldova. Everything seemed to go smoothly until customs and police deliberately allowed the shipment through to monitor the organization behind it. A year later, on January 14th, police in Guyana discovered a lifeless body on a small beach. The investigation revealed that the man was from Suriname, the same country as Nitender. After a thorough investigation, the police determined that Nitender Omrazing was connected to the case. However, it was still unclear whether he was involved in the scam or was simply a victim of criminals using his container without his knowledge. It is highly likely that Nitender was summoned to explain the missing shipments. The 800 kilograms shipment was not the only loss. A massive shipment of 2,345 kilograms also failed to reach its destination and had not even left the Suriname port. This was the largest seizure in Suriname's history. Just before Nitender was questioned about the case, his life ended, clearly indicating that someone did not want him to speak to the police. In May 2021, Fleur Bresser was officially added to Belgium's most wanted list, and the search for him had just begun. Fleur Bresser was no longer just an ordinary criminal. He had crossed all limits, smuggling tons of cocaine and engaging in unimaginable acts of brutality. His prominence in the criminal underworld was becoming increasingly apparent. One of the main reasons he was put on the wanted list was his escalating acts of violence, prompting Belgian police to resolve to stop him as soon as possible. The hacked PGP encrypted messaging database revealed the true scale of Bongo King. After a thorough analysis of the messages, they traced him to Zurich, Switzerland. This was surprising because most major criminals in recent years had been caught in Dubai. In February 2022, after months of intense searching, 35-year-old Fleur Bresser was finally captured. He was living a lavish life in a luxury apartment in Zurich with his girlfriend and son. When the police raided, Fleur did not resist. He immediately surrendered, and his calm demeanor led many to suspect that Fleur had anticipated this event, and it was only a matter of time before he faced his fate. After his arrest in February, Fleur had to wait to be extradited to Belgium. He enlisted a lawyer to fight the extradition, citing overcrowded and chaotic prisons in Belgium as his argument. However, the judge showed little concern for these arguments and still decided to extradite him. Floor was flown on a private jet with heavily armed security to an airport in Belgium. At the airport, a helicopter was waiting to take him to a secret, undisclosed prison. Floor's girlfriend, who also lived with him in the luxury apartment, was initially released. However, when she returned to the Netherlands from Switzerland a while later, she was arrested at the airport. She spent over a month in jail because the police suspected she was part of her boyfriend's organization and might have helped him launder money. Although she was later released, she remained a suspect in some cases related to Floor's organization. This is the story of Floor Bressers, a criminology student who became a notorious criminal. He quickly made a name for himself in the criminal underworld and did not hesitate to use brutal methods to achieve his goals. His intelligence and enthusiasm brought him immense wealth, but everything ended tragically at just 35 years old when he faced prison for the crimes he committed. 11 drug addicts lie motionless on the ground, victims of a batch of heroin with an unusually high purity level. This was no random accident, but a calculated move by the Lorusso clan, a direct challenge to the orders of Maria Licciardi, the most powerful drug queenpin in Italy. Maria, known as the godmother of the Camorra, had built a criminal empire based on ruthless strategies, trafficking women and orchestrating brutal murders. She survived countless police raids, hiding in luxurious places with marble floors and hot tubs, and even orchestrated the bombing of a prosecutor's office while in prison. However, the lone defiance of the Lorusso clan triggered a chain of events that led to her downfall. How did a conflict over heroin lead to the collapse of one of the most feared crime bosses in Italy's history? And how did this power struggle turn Naples into a violent war zone? When mentioning the mafia, Camorra might not be the first name that comes to mind. However, this criminal organization based in Naples and Campania has a long and brutal history dating back to the 16th century. Camorra evolved from a gang protecting gamblers from the police into one of Italy's most powerful criminal organizations. Unlike Cosa Nostra, with its strict hierarchical structure and a single boss at the top, Camorra is more fragmented. The independent operations of its clans often lead to internal conflicts, but also make the organization more resilient. When one leader is taken down, another quickly takes their place. Camorra funds itself through illegal activities such as drug trafficking and extortion, maintaining a strong influence in the Naples region. Maria Licciardi, born in 1951, was a part of this ruthless criminal organization in Secondigliano, Naples, right at the heart of the Licciardi clan's territory. Maria grew up in a criminal environment where her father was a notorious local boss and her brothers were deeply involved in Camorra. Maria's family life was far from ordinary. She married Antonio Tagami, another member of Camorra, and her initial role in the mafia world, like many other women, was traditional: a loyal wife, quietly cooking, cleaning, and raising children. However, her life did not stop there. Maria's brother, Gennaro Licciardi, also known as Monkey, became a powerful figure, founding the Secondigliano Alliance, a coalition of clans controlling many illegal activities. In Naples during the 1980s and 1990s, the world of organized crime in Italy was in chaos. The government launched a large-scale crackdown that led to the arrest and death of many male leaders, creating a power vacuum that women, including Maria, began to fill. As Maria's brothers and husband were imprisoned during the government crackdown, she faced a formidable challenge, leading a criminal organization in turmoil. Naples at the time was engulfed in violence and poverty, with unemployment in her neighborhood reaching 70% and the black market becoming the only remaining economy. Maria did not just step into the leadership role, she entered a true life-or-death struggle. She proved her mettle by skillfully organizing meetings with rival clans, convincing them that internal conflicts were undermining their shared business interests. She proposed a plan to divide the city to prevent territorial wars while focusing on expanding illegal activities like smuggling tobacco and drugs. Maria's efforts yielded significant results. Thanks to her confidence and effectiveness in executing her strategy, she gained respect from other gang bosses, and more importantly from the enforcers who carried out the orders. She quickly earned the title of godmother of the Licciardi clan and the Secondigliano alliance. Under her leadership, the Camorra became more organized and secretive than ever, expanding its power and influence. Maria Licciardi was not just an ordinary leader, she was a storm in the criminal world. When she took over the Licciardi clan, she faced a Naples full of chaos and violence. Her first strategic move was to unify 20 fragmented Camorra gangs under the Secondigliano alliance. Imagine the mafia bosses sitting around a table discussing power and territory, while Maria, a woman in a male-dominated world, confidently presented her vision of a more organized and profitable future. She understood that the endless wars between gangs only harmed business, so she created peace, persuading the other bosses to stop the territorial wars and focus on expanding illegal activities. Under Maria's leadership, tobacco smuggling, drug trafficking, and extortion operations surged, bringing in millions of euros and solidifying the power of the Secondigliano alliance. Her approach was compared to Rosetta Cudolo, another notorious female mafia boss. Rosetta, the sister of Raffaele Cutolo, the leader of the infamous NCO Camorra organization, was known for her sharp strategy and ruthless execution of orders. Raffaele, often called the Professor, founded the NCO, with the vision of building a highly structured and disciplined criminal organization. While he executed grand strategies from prison, Rosetta was the one who made these plans a reality on the ground. Her intelligence and decisiveness made her an indispensable asset to the organization. Rosetta's strategic mind was evident in her ability to manage NCO's vast operations network. She coordinated drug trafficking, extortion, and other criminal activities with precision, ensuring that the organization ran smoothly despite intense scrutiny from law enforcement. Rosetta's ruthlessness in enforcing orders instilled fear and respect within the NCO ranks, securing her position as a power enforcer. She did not hesitate to use violence to maintain order and discipline within the organization. Those who opposed her or disobeyed orders faced severe consequences, often carried out by Rosetta herself. Her brutality was so notorious that it played a key role in maintaining NCO's supreme power. Both Maria and Rosetta were cold and calculating figures, skilled in cultivating loyalty and fear in equal measure. Under Maria's leadership, the Camorra not only survived but thrived, becoming more secretive, sophisticated, and powerful than ever. One of Maria Licciardi's most brutal and controversial decisions was breaking a long-standing Camorra rule against trafficking women. The Camorra tradition had long been to avoid profiting from the trafficking of women, but Maria, as a woman, saw this as an opportunity to increase power and profits. She made a dangerous pact with the Albanian mafia to bring women into Italy. These women were often promised legitimate jobs to escape poverty in their homeland, but upon arrival, they fell into a nightmare. They were purchased for about $2,000 each and forced into prostitution, becoming slaves tightly controlled. To ensure they could not escape or report to the authorities, the Camorra often got them addicted to drugs to keep them under control. These women had to live in fear and endure ruthless surveillance from their overseers. This shift not only expanded Camorra's revenue, but also boosted Maria's reputation, proving that she was just as ruthless as her male counterparts. Maria's trafficking operations were not only extensive, but also brutally efficient. The victims were moved through a network of safe houses, always under surveillance, and any signs of resistance were swiftly punished, often with death. This brutality made Camorra not only powerful, but also infamous for its bloody actions. Under Maria's leadership, Camorra became a formidable force both in power and reputation. Her ability to adapt and innovate within the criminal world made her stand out from many of her rivals. However, her brutality and the scale of her operations could not escape the attention of law enforcement and rival factions, leading to severe violent conflicts and later crackdowns. In the spring of 1999, a major event shook Camorra and sparked a bloody conflict. It all started with a shipment of extremely pure heroin from Turkey, a shipment full of promise, but also fraught with risks. Maria Licciardi, a sharp and strategic leader, immediately recognized the danger. She knew that selling such pure heroin could lead to a wave of overdoses and deaths, which would undoubtedly draw unwanted attention from the public and law enforcement. So she decided to ban the sale of this heroin, a move meant to protect the organization. Despite the sacrifice of short-term profits, Maria was determined to prevent the sale of pure heroin. However, not everyone agreed with this decision. The LoRusso clan, feeling increasingly marginalized and harboring simmering discontent, is decided to defy Maria's orders. Tensions had been brewing for a long time, as the LoRusso clan felt they were not receiving the power and profits they deserved. Their frustration and ambition drove them to challenge Maria, seeking to assert their power and gain greater influence within the criminal system. The LoRusso clan began selling pure heroin on the streets, and as Maria had predicted, the consequences were catastrophic. Within weeks, heroin overdose deaths began to rise sharply. In particular, April 1999 saw as many as 11 addicts die from overdoses. This wasn't just a minor incident, but a full-blown public health crisis, drawing significant attention and causing a wave of public outrage. These deaths triggered a strong police crackdown on the Camorra clans. Authorities already on alert now had the perfect reason to conduct large-scale raids aimed at weakening Camorra's dominance and the power of the criminal families. The media quickly jumped in, highlighting Camorra's role in the heroin crisis and painting a grim picture of Naples' underworld. The actions of the LoRusso clan not only sparked public outrage and increased police activity, but also caused serious rifts within the Secondigliano alliance. The unity that the mafia had carefully built was now pushed to its limit. The heroin scandal became a critical turning point, demonstrating how just one wrong decision or act of defiance could upend the entire power dynamics established within Camorra. The streets of Naples turned into bloody battlegrounds, where gunfire, drugs, and brutal acts became commonplace. Police raids were relentless, with numerous lower and mid-level members of Camorra being arrested and imprisoned. These arrests only fueled more violence as rival clans saw opportunities to seize power and territory from the weakening LoRusso clan. However, the problem didn't stop with the LoRusso clan. The raids and internal conflicts also weakened the entire Camorra. Maria Licciardi, with her sharp strategic vision, found herself caught in this whirlwind of chaos. She did her best to prevent this disastrous scenario, but the defiance from the LoRusso clan put everyone in danger. After the heroin-related incidents, the streets of Naples were filled with anger and fear following the deaths of 11 addicts. In April 1999, the incident involving pure heroin triggered an unprecedented wave of outrage. Families mourned the loss of their loved ones, and the community demanded action. The Italian government and law enforcement agencies did not miss this opportunity. They quickly organized large-scale operations against Camorra, deploying hundreds of police equipped with modern technology and sophisticated intelligence. Raids on Camorra's hideouts, drug labs, and safe houses were not just minor arrests, but coordinated military-style operations aimed at wiping out the entire organization from its roots. This intense crackdown had far-reaching impacts, as the Secondigliano alliance that Maria Licciardi had struggled to unite began to unravel. The unity she had painstakingly built started to disappear, giving way to chaos as leaders were overthrown, and rival factions saw opportunities to assert their power. The once stable and powerful alliance crumbled under the pressure of relentless police attacks and internal disintegration. As order within Camorra vanished, chaos took over. Violence in the Secondigliano area escalated quickly as the power vacuum created by the arrests led to brutal confrontations and the revival of old grudges. Gunfights became commonplace, with bodies piling up on the streets. The local residents, already struggling with poverty and unemployment, were now gripped by indescribable panic as they witnessed these horrific scenes. The situation grew even more dire when the stamp conflict erupted, marking one of the bloodiest chapters in Camorra's history. This conflict was primarily a power struggle between factions loyal to Maria Licciardi and breakaway groups seeking to free themselves from her control. The violence was intense and unrelenting, with over 120 people killed in just a few months. This wasn't just a fight over territory or money, it was a battle for survival and power. The streets of Naples ran red with blood as rival gunmen hunted each other down in an endless war. Camora's brutality reached its peak with the murder of Jose Verde, a 22-year-old woman in a calculated and ruthless act designed to extract information. Jose was linked to the criminal world through her ex-boyfriend, Gennaro Natorno, who had been kidnapped by a criminal group. Natorno was a member of a breakaway faction that had split from the main Camorra, leading to increased tensions and violence. Due to Jose's past connection with Natorno, the rival faction believed she might hold valuable information about his whereabouts and activities. The kidnapping was meticulously planned. Jose was taken to a remote location where she was subjected to brutal forms of torture to force her to reveal information. Despite enduring excruciating pain, Jose refused to betray her ex-lover. This led to her being killed in a gruesome manner. 3 shots to the neck, a method chosen to ensure a slow and painful death. Her body was then placed in a car and burned, likely to destroy evidence and send a chilling message to anyone who dared to defy or withhold information from Camorra. The public reacted with horror and outrage to this murder. This brutal act, along with the rising death toll, forced the government to take tougher measures. More police were deployed to Naples, and the crackdown intensified. Driven by public pressure, the authorities ramped up their campaign to dismantle Camorra's infrastructure, arresting anyone suspected of being involved in criminal activities. Despite her sharp strategic mind, Maria Licciardi struggled to maintain control. The spiral of violence, continuous arrests, and internal betrayals became too much for even her to handle. Her once unquestionable power was now in doubt, and her allies grew increasingly unreliable. The stamp conflict marked the beginning of the end for Maria's reign. The pressure from law enforcement, combined with internal strife, laid the groundwork for her eventual downfall. The pressure on Maria Licciardi and Camorra increased from all sides. The public was outraged by the escalating violence and drug-related deaths, and the government was determined to completely dismantle Camorra's operations. In the largest crackdown to date, a massive operation involving 1,500 police officers was launched, resulting in the arrest of 52 criminals in a single night. This show of force aimed to break Camorra's network and eliminate key figures. However, Maria was a master of evasion. She used a network of luxurious hideouts equipped with full surveillance systems, marble floors, and even hot tubs to stay one step ahead of the authorities. Despite being intensely hunted, she successfully avoided capture for a long time. Her ability to vanish without a trace earned her the nickname the Scarlet Pimpernel of Italy. Maria used her vast resources and loyal network to keep herself out of the law's reach. However, the relentless pressure from the police and the increasing number of arrests around her signaled that her days on the run were numbered. Her ability to maintain operations while in hiding was impressive, but eventually, Maria's luck ran out. On June 14, 2001, based on a crucial tip, the police finally captured Maria. She was arrested without resistance in the city of Melito di Napoli, a suburban area of Naples known for its high concentration of Camorra activity. This arrest was the result of months of surveillance and meticulous intelligence gathering. Law enforcement had intensified efforts to dismantle Camorra's leadership structure, and Maria, one of the most elusive figures, had become their top target. The breakthrough came when a source, possibly from within Camorra's ranks or from a rival faction, provided critical information about Maria Licciardi's hideout. On that fateful day, an elite police team swiftly and discreetly executed their plan. They tracked Maria to a modest apartment where she was hiding, relying on her loyal network to avoid detection. Despite her notoriety and the extensive protective measures she had established, the police operation was flawlessly executed. Maria was arrested without any resistance, a stark contrast to the violent confrontations that often accompanied the arrests of Camorra members. This moment marked the end of her reign as the most powerful female boss in Camorra's history. Maria's arrest was not only a significant victory for law enforcement, but also a powerful message to the criminal world that even the most formidable figures cannot escape justice. However, the battle didn't end there, even though she was imprisoned. But Maria's influence did not immediately disappear. She continued to maintain power and respect within Camorra, even while in captivity. Maria ruled in prison much as she had ruled the organization, enforcing a strict code of loyalty and silence among her subordinates. One of the most shocking events during her imprisonment was the bombing of prosecutor Luigi Bobbio's office. Bobbio had relentlessly pursued Camorra, particularly Maria Licciardi. The bombing was not only intended to intimidate and deter him from continuing his investigations, but also served as a threatening message to the authorities. Contrary to expectations, the attack only resulted in Bobbio being placed under strict police protection, and he continued his work with even greater determination. This attack demonstrated that Maria was willing to do anything to protect her empire, even while behind bars. Although Maria's imprisonment didn't completely destroy her network, it significantly weakened it. The arrests and prosecutions of her associates continued to erode the gang's power. By 2009, Maria was released after nearly 8 years in prison, but the landscape had completely changed. Maria's release was not due to any single factor, but rather the result of a combination of legal and strategic reasons. Throughout her trial and imprisonment, her legal team continuously sought to reduce Maria's sentence through various legal maneuvers, including appeals and negotiations. Despite her serious criminal record, they exploited legal loopholes and delayed proceedings, contributing to her early release. Maria's conduct in prison also played a role as she maintained a humble attitude and avoided causing trouble, earning her positive reports from prison authorities. This behavior, along with overcrowding in Italian prisons and judicial reforms aimed at reducing the inmate population, contributed to her release. When Maria returned to the outside world, she found that Camorra had changed significantly during her absence. The organization had adapted to new challenges, and new leaders had emerged to fill the void she had left. The loyalty of her former subordinates, once unquestioned, had waned as they were arrested, allied with other factions, or seized power for themselves. Maria tried to regain her position by relying on her reputation and connections in the underworld, but her influence was never the same as before. The new leaders were wary of her, and the younger generation of Camorra had different priorities and alliances. Maria faced significant resistance in her attempts to reassert her power, but the power dynamics within the organization had changed too much for her to regain her former dominance. Nevertheless, Maria Licciardi did not completely disappear from the criminal scene. She eventually returned to Camorra, but unlike before, things were no longer in her control. Maria no longer had the sharpness and authority she once possessed, while law enforcement quickly began monitoring her every move. A major shock occurred in August 2021 at Fiumicino Airport in Rome. As Maria attempted to flee to Spain, her escape was thwarted. The Carabinieri arrested her before she could react. Faced with serious charges of mafia-type activities, extortion, and receiving stolen money, Maria, who had once been the powerful boss ruling the streets of Naples with an iron fist, now faced the prospect of spending the rest of her life behind bars. The story of Maria Licciardi, once the most powerful female boss in Italy's drug trade, ended in a tragic and unbelievable manner. This is the story of a man who survived one of the most brutal drug wars in Dutch history, a conflict that spanned over a decade. It all started with a missing shipment of cocaine worth $5 million, but what happened next was beyond anyone's wildest imagination. This man wasn't just a key figure in the war. He might have been the one who ignited a wave of unprecedented violence. The story behind it is even more complex. He's accused of being the mastermind behind the mysterious disappearance of a man who remains missing to this day. And it doesn't stop there. He's also believed to have orchestrated the kidnapping of the brother of Belgium's most notorious drug lord, a bold move to exact revenge and consolidate power. These accusations are far from trivial, but what's the truth behind all this? This is the story of Hussein 8S. Hussein, also known by the nickname The Mayor, was born in 1979 in Amsterdam, growing up in the crime-ridden areas of the city. From a young age, Hussein was drawn into a life of crime, committing a series of offenses along with other kids from the neighborhood. Initially, it was just petty thefts, but soon their group evolved into organized crime on a larger scale. Hussein entered the drug smuggling world alongside his friends Gwinnett Martha and Najeb Bubu. They started off dealing in ecstasy and then moved on to cocaine, a highly profitable but extremely dangerous commodity. Life seemed perfect at that time with money flowing in and everything going smoothly, but in 2007, Gwinnett, the leader of the group, was arrested. While Gwinnett was in prison, Hussein and Najeb continued to run the organization. In May 2008, Gwinnett made a daring escape from prison and fled to Morocco, where he hid in Hussein's house before escaping to Belgium. However, in 2010, Gwinnett was arrested again, and this time, he made a decision that would change the entire game, a decision that led to a decade of violence and death, claiming over 20 lives. Constant clashes with the law made it difficult for Gwinnett to effectively run the organization. He decided to hand over leadership to Najeb Bubu while waiting for his chance to regain control. This decision infuriated Hussein, who felt betrayed by the man he had trusted after all he had done for Gwinnett. Angry and frustrated, Hussein decided to leave the organization and start his own path with his brother-in-law, Benouf A. In 2012, Gwinnett returned, and although the rift between them remained unresolved, Hussein still arranged a cocaine shipment with Gwinnett. They were no longer friends, just business partners with a single goal: is money. A 200 kilograms shipment of cocaine was scheduled to arrive at a port in the UK, but fate took a different turn. The shipment reached the port as expected, but then mysteriously vanished without a trace. Suspicion and tension escalated, pushing both sides into a spiral of distrust and confrontation. Instead of resolving the issue peacefully, everything escalated, fueling a bloody conflict that lasted a decade. The war erupted fiercely when Najeb, the man Gwinnett chose to replace Hussein, was assassinated in Antwerp. From there, a true nightmare unfolded, with over 20 people losing their lives in an unprecedented wave of violence in the underworld. On October 18, 2012, a death order was allegedly issued by Hussein and Benouf, marking the beginning of a series of bloody events. Shortly after, Hussein disappeared from Amsterdam, constantly fleeing between Morocco and Panama. The death of Najeb, Gwinnett's loyal associate, not only marked a significant turning point, but also sparked an endless cycle of revenge. Both sides harbored an intense desire for retribution, and no one could feel safe. Amidst this storm of violence, one event stood out, making everything more brutal than ever before. The first act of vengeance occurred at the doorstep of Fayrouz Lounge, a popular shisha bar that was not only a gathering place for Hussein and his gang, but also a symbol of the organization's underground power. On March 9, 2016, a severed human head was placed in front of the bar, its eyes seemingly staring through the windows inside. That horrifying image was etched into the minds of those involved, serving as an unforgettable warning of the cruelty of this war. Imagine this happened 4 years after the cocaine shipment went missing. Everything had truly spiraled into uncontrollable chaos. While Amsterdam was engulfed in turmoil, Hussein remained at a distance, far away from the authorities' reach. However, that didn't mean he had stopped his drug trafficking activities. The cocaine smuggling world is filled with brutality, where even a small mistake can lead to disaster, as we've seen from the 200 kilograms shipment that went missing in 2012. In 2016, Hussein was drawn into another shocking act of revenge stemming from a failed shipment. It all began in June 2015 when Hussein received a 320 kilograms shipment of cocaine from South America to a port in the UK. He entrusted a Belgian contact, Van Fouad Abbas Tot George, with the task of retrieving the cocaine from the containers and distributing it to secret warehouses. On June 19, 2015, the shipment arrived at the UK port, and Abbas Tot George's team quickly extracted the cocaine from the container. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, but in reality, the shipment had been under police surveillance all along. The police waited patiently, monitoring every move, and eventually tracked them to the parking lot of the City Inn Hotel in Borgerhout. There, they caught Abbas Tot George and his two accomplices in the act of receiving the goods and stuffing them into the trunk of a car. At that moment, the police stormed in and arrested them all. Hussein was furious when he learned that his shipment worth over 10 million euros had been confiscated. That's when the real trouble began for Abbas Tot George. Although he was only detained for a short time, but upon his release, he quickly realized that Hussein had no intention of letting this matter slide. Hussein demanded that Abbas Tot George repay the enormous sum, issuing a chilling warning. "You received the shipment, so you have to pay." However, Abbas Tot George refused, arguing that the situation was beyond his control and not his fault. For months, Hussein kept pressuring Abbas Tot George, but he remained defiant. Angered and losing patience, Hussein began direct attacks, shooting at multiple houses connected to Abbas Tot George. Even in the face of violence, Abbas Tot George stubbornly refused to pay. Finally, Hussein decided to take more drastic action by planning to kidnap Abbas Tot George. However, this plan had to be put on hold when Hussein was arrested in Morocco. It was the fake passport he was carrying that caught the attention of border authorities, leading to his detention. It is believed that Hussein had come from his hideout in Central America, where he had been evading capture for a long time. Upon his arrest, Moroccan police searched two of Hussein's private properties in Marrakech, uncovering a treasure trove that included 34 luxury watches, 10 mobile phones, 2 tablets, 16,000 euros in cash, and 10 fake passports. This was just the tip of the iceberg, revealing a glimpse into the complex and ruthless underground life Hussein was leading. Dutch authorities were elated upon hearing the news of Hussein's arrest, hoping that Morocco would extradite him back to the Netherlands. Hussein was not only the prime suspect in a series of violent incidents shaking Amsterdam, but also had a pending 244-day suspended sentence for severe assaults committed in Amsterdam in 2002 and 2008, making him the target of an international arrest warrant. However, Morocco has a policy of not extraditing its citizens, which meant that the hope of bringing Hussein back to the Netherlands was almost entirely dashed. In response, the Netherlands requested that Morocco prosecute Hussein for identity fraud and enforce the remaining 244 days of his suspended sentence. This move was not only aimed at ensuring that Hussein served his punishment, but also at prolonging his detention to allow time for building a more serious case, possibly involving drug trafficking and even orchestrating murders in the violent Amsterdam drug war. On August 20th, 2015, Hussein ATS was sentenced to only 4 months in prison for identity fraud, leaving Dutch law enforcement deeply disappointed. The Moroccan judge did not address the 244 days of Hussein's unserved sentence. Upon completing his sentence, Hussein was released, leaving Dutch authorities empty-handed. He immediately resumed his grand plan to kidnap Abbas Tot George. Hussein did not hesitate to recruit 4 notorious gangsters from Paris to carry out this mission. For months, this group secretly tracked Abbas Tot George's every move, placing a tracking device under his car and constantly surveilling both his home and his mother's house, where Abbas Tot George frequently visited. In mid-July 2016, Antwerp's underworld was thrown into chaos when Abbas Tot George went missing for 5 days with no one, not even his wife or associates, having any idea of his whereabouts. In reality, Hussein had ordered the Parisian gangsters to act on July 7, 2016. They successfully kidnapped Abbas Tot George and immediately held him captive in an apartment in Brussels. To prove that Abbas Tot George was in their custody, the kidnappers placed his passport in the mailbox of his closest associate. They also sent a voice recording to his wife in which Abbas Tot George said, "I am still alive. This is not a joke. Follow their instructions." Soon after, another recording was sent, this time with the chilling voice of an unknown man. "Do not go to the police or we will kill him." Initially, Hussein demanded a ransom of 10 million euros, equivalent to the value of the failed cocaine shipment, but after tense negotiations, the amount was reduced to 5 million euros. In the end, Abbas Tot George's group could only gather 1.6 million euros in cash at that moment. To show their sincerity, they handed over the money to Hussein and promised that the rest would be delivered. However, things did not go as expected. All communication between the kidnappers and Abbas Tot George's people suddenly ceased. Anxiety grew as they began to suspect whether Abbas Tot George was still alive, especially when the kidnappers refused to negotiate further on the exchange of money and the hostage. Rumors began to spread rapidly. Some said Abbas Tot George had been killed and his body dissolved in acid in Amsterdam, while others claimed he had been buried in the Sahara Desert. But whatever the truth, the fate of Abbas Tot George remains a mystery. Even more terrifying is that this kidnapping was not the only act allegedly orchestrated by Hussein. Just 4 months later, on November 15, 2016, another man, who had just left the Basic Fit gym in Antwerp, became the victim of a brutal kidnapping. Surveillance cameras captured the moment he approached his car when a van suddenly pulled up beside him. A group of men jumped out, seized him within seconds, and sped away, leaving no trace of his whereabouts for 5 days. Unexpectedly, a man named Othman LB contacted the Antwerp police, claiming that his younger brother Younes had been kidnapped, and that he had managed to get in touch with the kidnappers. The kidnappers demanded a large ransom, plunging everyone into a new nightmare. Othman did not hesitate to identify the mastermind behind this audacious kidnapping. It was none other than Hussein. For those unfamiliar, Othman LB is not just any name, he is one of the biggest drug lords in Belgium. Starting from extracting cocaine from containers at the port of Antwerp, Othman cleverly turned this into an opportunity to build his empire. Instead of receiving cash, he demanded to be paid in cocaine, a bold but incredibly smart move. Othman obtained cocaine at the base price from South America, ranging from $2,000 to $6,000 per kilogram. However, everyone knew that once this shipment safely reached the port of Antwerp, its value could skyrocket to $25,000 per kilogram or even higher. By selling the cocaine himself, Othman made enormous profits and quickly rose to the top of the underworld. Othman's empire grew stronger, and no one wanted to miss the chance to join his winning team. Currently, Othman is probably the richest drug smuggler in Belgium, but on paper, he is merely a businessman specializing in luxury watches and real estate investments in Dubai. If you want to learn more about Othman's life and career, don't miss the video on my channel. It's truly a fascinating story. Back to the case, Othman continued to provide the police with crucial information about Hussein and his network, even knowing the serial number of the BlackBerry PGP phone Hussein was using. Meanwhile, Younes, Othman's brother, was being held at a secret location somewhere in Brussels. After weeks of captivity, Younes was moved to Paris. Throughout this time, Othman remained in Dubai, continuously providing valuable information to the Antwerp police. After 37 days in captivity, Younes finally managed to escape. According to reports, he used a spoon to pry open his handcuffs, tied sheets together, and climbed out of a window to freedom. But is this story credible, or did Othman quietly pay the ransom? Rumors on the street suggested that Othman had paid several million euros, gold, or several kilograms of cocaine, or perhaps even luxury watches to save his brother. However, Othman firmly denied this. Othman asserted, "The stories about me paying a ransom in cash, gold, or cocaine are absurd. My brother escaped from the apartment in Paris on his own. After Younes was rescued, the investigation gained momentum rapidly. On January 24th, 2017, 4 Frenchmen, Hassin S., Mohamed Kanouté, Abu Sako, and Rachid Belarbi, were arrested in Amsterdam. They were the prime suspects in the kidnapping of Abbas Tot George Balker. Younes recognized Abu's voice and recalled him saying, "We've done this before," clearly referring to the kidnapping of Abbas Tot George. During an interrogation, Mohammed coldly stated, "If two groups in the underworld have an issue with each other, they will sit down together until the problem is resolved. That's not kidnapping." This was clearly a dangerously understated interpretation. However, the most substantial evidence linking Hussein to the kidnapping emerged when Adil El-Monti was arrested. Younes identified Adil El-Monti as the person who brought him food while he was held captive, but Adil's role seemed to be much deeper. According to the police, Adil was in direct contact with Hussein. During a search of Younes' apartment, the police discovered a Romanian passport with Hussein's photo along with several other passport photos of him. In Adil's PGP phone, the police found Hussein listed in the contacts. Additionally, Adil's apartment contained several expensive watches, which investigators believe were part of the ransom Othman paid to Hussein to save his brother. This would make sense given Othman's reputation as a luxury watch dealer in Dubai. However, the biggest question is why Hussein kidnapped Othman's brother in the first place. To find the answer, we need to go back to a fateful day, May 22nd, 2014. That was the day Gwinnett Martha was shot 80 times after leaving a restaurant in Amsterdam. With his death, Hussein's biggest rival was eliminated. This was a significant blow, and it was believed that Hussein, along with his brother-in-law Benouf, had won and ended this bloody conflict. For months, the underworld in the Netherlands and Belgium was enveloped in a stifling atmosphere, waiting to see who would step up to fill the massive void Gwinnett left in the cocaine smuggling market. Gwinnett had controlled a large portion of the market, and with his death, this lucrative pie was up for grabs. Many speculated that Hussein would quickly take over this market share, and Hussein himself might have thought so too. But things didn't go as planned. Those who had previously worked under Hussein began to show disloyalty and no longer followed him. Instead of continuing to work with Hussein, they turned to Othman, whose name was rapidly rising in the smuggling scene. Everyone wants to join the winning side, and at that moment, Othman was the brightest star. Hussein started to face difficulties using the port of Antwerp as he had before. Othman and other Belgian gangs strategically sidelined him, slowly strangling Hussein's operations. Hussein's shipments were constantly being intercepted, and in the rare case that one got through, he had to pay huge commissions to insiders at the port who extracted the cocaine from containers, for him leaving Hussein's profits pitifully depleted. In this underworld, everything revolves around loyalty, something Hussein was severely lacking. Although Gwinnett was from Amsterdam, he maintained strong relationships with powerful groups in Antwerp. He was a respected figure there, having once taken refuge in Belgium after escaping from prison with the help of friends from Antwerp, but Hussein was different. He was merely a businessman, lacking any respect from the Belgians. These groups chose to build relationships with Othman, a local from Antwerp, rather than working with Hussein from Amsterdam, a logical decision when considering the benefits for both sides. One informed source stated, whenever Hussein wanted to do business at the port, he would try to recruit some guys from Borgerhout, Antwerp. However, they always demanded extremely high profit percentages to cooperate, and most of the shipments failed. These continuous failures led South American cocaine suppliers to turn their backs on Hussein and switch to working with Othman, a stable and trouble-free partner. Without a doubt, the main reason Othman's brother Younes was kidnapped was as an act of revenge by Hussein. It was his way of retaliating, because Othman had seized the market that Gwinnett left behind, pushing Hussein out of the game or at least making it difficult for him to maintain his position. Hussein might be one of the few remaining figures from the bloody conflict in the Netherlands that began in 2012. Others have been buried or imprisoned. The number of those who survived this war is very small, and it seems that after nearly a decade, everything has ended. In 2019, Hussein had a brief conversation with a Dutch crime journalist after the journalist reported that he had disappeared. He said, "That's fake news. I'm still in Morocco doing my thing. No one is looking for me." But is anyone still hunting Hussein? The answer remains a mystery because he is allegedly involved in too many incidents. We still have to use the word allegedly, because so far, Hussein is only a suspect in all the mentioned cases and has not been convicted of any crimes, from the murders in Amsterdam to drug smuggling to the kidnapping of Abbas Tot George or Younes. The lingering question is, will Hussein ever set foot in Amsterdam again? That seems highly unlikely. Will he continue to operate in the underworld after being checkmated by Othman? That's the question we'll end this story with, and perhaps we'll never know the answer. What do you think of this story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can see. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.